Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Jennifer Chan and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about important strategies for USMLE preparation. Before I start, let me give you a brief introduction of myself. I did my internal medicine residency training in Cleveland Clinic Health System, and I did my geriatrics fellowship at UPMC, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. I am board certified in internal medicine as well as geriatrics. I was a clinical faculty at UTESCA and also PNWU Health Science. I have a lot of experience in medical education, training medical students, residents, and fellows. Since we're talking about USMLE preparation strategies, I think it is relevant for me to talk a little bit about my USMLE scores. At the time when I took the USMLE, we didn't have the 3-digit score. We only have the 2-digit score, which is showing the percentile. So my USMLE Step 1 score was 99, which means I was in the 99th percentile. My USMLE Step 2 clinical knowledge score was 91. I prepared Step 1 and Step 2 at the same time, so after I took the Step 1 test, I waited about 2 weeks, then I took my Step 2. Okay, now let's talk about important strategies for USMLE preparation. I think the most important strategy is to set your schedule. For the US medical students, you're usually only given 4 to 5 weeks to prepare for the USMLE Step 1. So I think it's kind of a given, like you only have so much time to prepare for it. But for the IMG candidates, a common thing that I see is people are taking as long as they can to prepare for the test. Sometimes I see people spending years preparing for USMLE Step 1. I think it's super important to set your schedule before you start, knowing that you have to finish all your preparation before a certain point of time. Usually my advice is to set your goal first, knowing clearly which year you're going to participate in the match. Then I advise to check the deadlines for each step, which means you need to know how long it takes for the scores to come out, and if you want your scores to be out or available at certain times, then you at least have to take your test before which dates. This way you will count your time backwards, and then you know when do you need to finish your Step 1, when do you need to finish your Step 2 CK, and when do you need to finish your OET, etc. Once you have your schedule set up, you'll know how long you have for each step. Then you need to determine how long you can study every day. A lot of people want to believe they can study 12 hours a day and 7 days a week, and they can keep doing that for several months until they're done with the test. When I heard that kind of plan, I usually say, just be realistic. Be realistic. It is totally okay to say when you first start that, oh, I only have 6 hours a day to study. Because that way you will set your goal and make your plans accordingly. I think a common mistake I see is a lot of people will say, well, I wish I can study 10 hours a day, then I can finish everything in 2 months. But then day after day, week after week, they are always behind because they just don't have that time. The other thing I always recommend is do set time apart for breaks and entertainment. Do you need to get Saturday or Sunday off to do grocery shopping? Or do you need to go to the movies or go swimming to be relaxed a little bit? Put those things in the schedule. Because if you keep ignoring yourself, ignoring your needs, then you will quickly burn out. So I hope now you realized you only have limited amount of time to study. So now we will go to tip number 3, which is choose your study materials wisely. I know all of you probably have collected a whole bunch of study materials, but my suggestion is stick to one book and one Q bank. And you can use other resources sparingly and for fun, but do stick to just one book and one Q bank. So when I was doing my USMLE preparation, we only had Kaplan at the time, so everybody used Kaplan and First Aid as the book. Now you have UWorld and all the other things that's available to you. So you can pick whichever one you think is the best for you, but do stick to it. Now let's go to our next tip, which is spend most of your time and effort on the high yield topics. I know you're going to ask me this question: how do I know which ones are the high yield topics, right? That's why you need your Q bank. When you're doing all your questions, you see certain topics, they just keep popping up over and over, then you know those are the high yield topics. And there are other topics that just pops up from time to time, or maybe even once in a lifetime, then you know you don't have to pay as much attention to it. The other thing is, do not try to memorize everything. I know a lot of people ask me this question too. What if I don't memorize this one thing and it shows up on the test? I think it's very reasonable to think that if you memorize as many things as possible, that will be good. Are you willing to use your limited, precious memory space for this pretty low yield topic, or you would rather use it for something that's super high yield? When you think about it that way, you realize you're not giving up something. You're actually trying to choose a better option. So I really need to emphasize, spend most of your time and effort on the high yield topics and do not try to memorize everything. The other tip I want to talk about is apply active learning principles. I see a lot of students spending hours and hours studying, and they were reading and rereading the texts, trying to memorize things. But when they try to do the study questions, they actually cannot apply those knowledges to solve the questions. And the other problem is those kind of memory is actually short-term memory. And over several days or weeks, then your memory fades and you don't remember what you really read about. So that's why it's very, very important to apply active learning principles. If there are people who are interested in the details about active learning principles, please comment below so I can do a separate video on that topic. But now let me give you 2 quick things that you can do to make your study more effective. First is to use the tests, use the study questions as a learning tool. I usually recommend doing the study questions one block at a time and then pretend you're doing a real test. Try your best to come up with answers first. Then after you're finished with all the questions, you can check out the explanations. This way, when you're all done and you're checking for the explanations will actually stick to your memory. And you will also have a much better understanding of those topics. The other thing I suggest is to create your own short list. You will see a lot of tables and lists in all the books and QBank's explanations. These things were all created to facilitate your memory. But the tables and the lists are sometimes very hard to memorize. So I usually recommend, instead of trying to memorize the whole table or the whole list, just getting a shorter or more concise list out of the table or the list to create your own one. This process will actually help you to learn how to apply the knowledge rather than just memorize the things. The other tip is do not be afraid to assess yourself. I saw a lot of students get very upset about scores. If they got more than 80% today, they're happy. If it's 50%, they're doomed. Just remember, when you are doing the practice questions, the study questions, the purpose is not the score. The purpose is to assess yourself. You're trying to find out what topics you need to pay more attention to and also how you can answer the questions right next time. The last topic we're going to talk about for today's video is adjust your plan to achieve your goal within the time frame. Just remember, you're always going to fall behind. That happens to everybody, no matter how hard you try. So from time to time, you have to evaluate whether things are working or not. Then what you need to do is just switch out the things that are not working and stick to the things that are working. If you keep doing this process, you will get a better and better plan that will fit your needs and your situation. Okay, that is all for today's video. If you find the content to be useful, please do subscribe, like, share, and comment. Thank you, and you all have a great day. I will see you next time.